All right, welcome back. We are continuing to cook skirt steaks, marinade in semi-Korean marinade I made earlier. Now, skirt steaks basically comes like this. As you can see, there's a lot of fat, which actually help to retain the taste. Fat gives good taste. First thing we are going to do is we are going to actually sharpen the knife because sharp knife is safe knife. Usually I keep my knife functionally sharp. What that means is it's not going to be razor sharp. It's just sharp enough where I can cut things that I want to cut, but it's not what they call shaving sharp. Alright, I'm not going to trim all the meat. I'm just going to trim one for sample and show you how to put it into the marinade. Don't want to waste everybody's time on how to trim the meat. Now, as you can see, when you actually buy the skirt steak from the supermarket, this kind of fat on the top, you really can't do much about it. But when you actually turn it over and look at the bottom side of it, you can see ton of fat and lining. And you can actually trim these things off rather easily. It does take some time, but there's actually a trick to how to remove these things without taking too much time doing it. I usually start off at the top, hold on to the fat, and then start cutting it like this and go under the skin. Then you kind of pull back and at the same time run the knife right at it, right where the meat actually missed the lining. Sometimes you have to use paper towel or something like that to get a better grip on this thing. So you can see the lining is coming off fairly easily, and once you start going, you can see I'm separating the lining and the meat without taking too much meat off the steak, which I'm going to cook. The lining doesn't really affect the taste of meat, but it's just nice actually for presentation and texture and so on to actually remove this lining. It gives kind of a chewy texture if you don't remove it, and it distracts from eating. And I'm cooking 3 steaks tonight, and the longest part of the cooking is basically removing the lining from the meat. I don't want too much fat on the meat, although I want to have certain fat left on it to retain the taste and give that meaty taste to the finished product. But at the same time, I don't want just fat drenched cut of meat served to my family. Okay, that was our dog giving a little bark. There must be people walking around the town. And as you probably noticed, I do have accent. And if you're having a hard time understanding what I'm saying, I suggest that you go to local taekwondo classes and sit around for a couple of months, and you'll be able to understand exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, this is not very interesting part, but it's part of cooking. It's not much I'm not cutting too much. I'm basically skimming off this lining. And as you can see, about half of the lining is gone. Then I'll be starting on this side of it. Okay. One of my dog is choking right now. My beautiful wife is actually taking care of it, so we don't have to really worry about it. Must have ate something off the floor. And by the way, my trusty cameraman is my elder son. You probably notice it does take a lot of time and effort to remove this lining. The skirt steak, by the way, is the steak or meat, cut of meat that you're eating when you're actually ordering fajita from Mexican restaurants. It's usually grilled and shredded, or I guess shredded and grilled, I'm not sure. It's also used in certain Korean soup. It is called yukgaejang. Very spicy soup. Depends on the family and depends on the person who's cooking it. Sometimes they use flank steak or skirt steak. Skirt steak is a little cheaper and it's much more fattier. I mean, flank steak isn't exactly fat-free either, but both of them marinate nice and both of them actually taste great. And you can do similar thing with a flank steak, but personally I think skirt steak tastes better. Now as you can see, most of the lining has been removed, but there are still some fat left on the steak. I'm going to start removing those fats. I mean, most of the fat will actually cook out during the grilling, but when there's big chunk of fat stuck in here like this, I prefer to actually cut it out. The finished product does well in the refrigerator for a couple of days, and I'm cooking bulk basically, so once you actually remove the fat, it looks more appetizing next day after you spend some time in the refrigerator. I think that's good enough. As you can see, there's a lot of fat. And let's remove that part. Chances are this thing will come up with some of the lining. I mean, I removed most of the lining, but you can actually see there's still a little shiny part on the meat. See if I can remove these fat. there will be some fat left on the meat. Like I said, I mean, they do so much for the flavor. Alright, once meat has been handled, basically you want to wash your hands. When you're cooking with meat, you want to wash your hands before touching anything else. By the way, I added some more ginger powder into the marinade mix because it didn't give me enough kick. So here's a sample on what you're going to do after trimming all the meat and put them in the marinade. Goes in. You're going to actually squeeze all the air out. I usually close most of everything on the top, except maybe quarter inch at the corner, or maybe a little more. And squeeze everything out until the juice comes up to the top, like that. Then, when it's there, I squeeze it off. It's not exactly vacuum packed, but it actually, with the less air, for whatever reason, the meat does marinate better. So I'm going to continue trimming the meat. 2 more packets. Then once that's done, we'll get to the next point, which is green onion salad. That takes 1,000 cuts basically. So see you on next segment.